Welcome to Quilt Talk. Today I have a lot of projects to show you. I've been assembling some quilts, so I have some finished quilt tops, I have some plans, I have more projects that I found in the closet, and I sewed some blankets for my dogs. So this is a project update from last week, and I've been working on sewing some of these little mini charm packs into little rectangles. So this will be a project bag set at some point when I get into project bag making. I think this is going to be a notions pouch, and so it'll be front and back. I'll learn how to do zippers and stuff at some point. And this will be the front of the bag. And I'm thinking I bought some chambray print fabric that would look really nice with this. And so this will be maybe like a knitting bag. It's kind of what I'm thinking. It's a knitting bag with notions pouch in the future. Next, I've been working a lot on my Valentine's Day charm pack quilt. I've got quite a few charm pack quilts in here. And this is just from leftovers from my stash. And I cut up a fat quarter bundle and just kind of went with the color palette that was in that bundle. And I sewed them first into sets of 2 and then these 4 patches. I tried to find fabrics that coordinated well together as I was sewing. So if I thought one color, like this is a good example. So this one had a little bit of the tealy blue, so this batik seemed to go well with that, and then the pinks. Sometimes, depending on like the scrap of fabric, it was harder to pair fabrics with it, but did my best. I like the batiks in here. I find it hard to use batiks, but I think in something like this, they look nice. And they just add a nice little pop of color. Got quite a few of these, so I'll just go through them quickly. One thing I'm noticing too is that some of these were from actual charm packs, and some were layer cakes that I cut down, and some were scraps I cut down myself. So one thing I noticed as I was piecing some of these is that there are definitely tiny differences in the sizes between some of the different brands, and I don't know which one is which since it's just in my scrap stash, but there is definitely a size difference in some of the different fabrics I noticed. And then there's also just differences in the thread counts, and this is like a good example. This one was from a layer cake, and this is definitely a different thread count than this one, which is a Moda. So, but in a scrap quilt, doesn't matter, but it's just a nice way to play with fabrics. Kind of quickly show these. I've also started to piece these into 16 square blocks. I'll show those here in a minute. But this was just a good way to bust stash. And I like that for these type of projects too, because there are certain types of colors I like to keep in my stash, and I'm trying to curate a little bit more of what I really like. So a project like this is a good way to kind of clear out some of the colors that I don't necessarily gravitate towards as much, like some of the pinks that kind of skew more towards the blue, or some of the more reddish pinks are not necessarily my favorites, like this kind of color pink. Like I don't necessarily want to keep a ton of that in my stash, or maybe like these more like baby pinks. And so this is a good project to use up some of these fabrics that I wouldn't necessarily want to put in a big scrap quilt, but are fun for something like this. And I wanted to use every last scrap of the Valentine's fabric because I did not want to put more of this color pink back into the scrap baskets. But anyway, there's a lot of blocks here. But it's just fun, and just trying to make sure that each 4 patch looks nice together, trying not to repeat fabrics within the 4 patch, at least within the same particular skew of fabric. And then also trying to have like a mix of lights and darks. And I noticed in the blocks that I did a better job of that. I had an easier time when I got to the next part, but I mean, it's a scrap quilt, so it's all fine. And because the colors are in the same kind of color family, they all kind of go well together regardless. So almost done with this stack. Oh, I don't know. So I found this, and I don't know if I am short one or if this is an extra one, but I mean, I have extra fabric in my stash if I end up short a block, but I'm not sure where that is. And then, so once I have the 2 patches, I sew them across like this, and I'm just kind of making sure that these are different. I'm trying to light, dark, but again, I'm not obsessing too much about it. just kind of sewing them, and if they look nice together, like I like how this one looks. And then once I have 2 of those longer strips, I'm sewing them into these blocks, and then these blocks will eventually get sewn into rows, and I'll sew those into the quilt top. So what I ended up deciding to do as I was sewing these is I was trying to focus on the middle 4, and I don't know, I figured if the middle 4 looked good, then I wouldn't worry as much about some of the other ones. So, because some of them do have kind of light pinks or medium pinks touching each other, which is fine. I mean, once I get to where it's 400 squares, I feel like it'll be a good balance. And this is where, when the blocks are slightly different sizes, sometimes they end up a little bit wavy, or like the edges end up a little bit uneven. But again, I mean, it'll look fine when it's done. It's not triangle piecing or anything fancy. So a couple more of these, but this will be a project I hope to get finished in the next week. Just I hope this is like a good way to kind of see how different colors play with each other, and how you can take a fat quarter bundle and just add a bunch of colors that look similar or that go with it, and just kind of sew them up. So a few more of these, but I'm hoping to get it done by Valentine's Day. We'll see. Because sometimes getting the quilt top done is one challenge, and then the next challenge is to get it basted and quilted and the binding put on. But anyway, it's a nice way to play with color. I find it, it's like very potato chippy as I'm sewing these together, because typically what I'll do is I will lay out the different stacks next to my machine, so I can just kind of grab from different piles. And as I'm sewing along, it's very potato chippy to be like, I want to put this one with that one, and just keep going. So anyway, so big stack of these. Next up, I finally sewed this quilt top together. This one has been in 4 pieces for probably 5 years, and I've showed, here I'll try to show the quadrant first, and just show what a big difference it makes when I got them all sewed together. So that was quite a fun surprise this morning. So for this one, I've got the backing pieced, and so I'll be ready to get this one. So anyway, so it goes from this, which is pretty and has lots of pretty fabrics. This one was fun to play with, the dark blues and the low volumes, and this was kind of like my little pop color. I picked up a half yard of each of those at some point years ago, and then used those as a focus piece. So anyway, so that goes from looking like this to, once I sewed them together, you can see like how much prettier it looks all sewn up. So anyway, so that was a lot of fun this morning to get that pinned and sewed together. So anyway, so I want to get that quilt top, sorry, I've got to help her, quilt top quilted in the next couple weeks, and then that way that can be finished, because this is definitely right up my alley color wise, and like these are the kind of colors that I can have a lot of those in my scrap pins, and I enjoy that quite a bit. So anyway, so that is, and that's an Edita Sitar mystery quilt along from a couple years ago. And still working on my triangles on a roll scrap quilt that I'm just kind of winging, which who knows how that will work out. So this is out of the Easter egg hunt fabric that I've been working my way through, and I've got a couple of more blocks earmarked as I go. And so these are fun because I can lay these out and then just get a whole bunch sewn. So this one is, I believe, the sapphire block, and I feel like some of my backgrounds are a little bit busy on these, but in the scheme of things, it'll be fine. And then because some of my other quilt blocks are 8 of these by 8 of these, I decided to sash it with this color. And honestly, like I was struggling with this choice of the other background, so I thought that it would look okay, and this can just be a corner of the quilt. And this is just this was my test block. So anyway, so it looks good. And I think maybe this week I might start trying to piece these together and start to be strategic for my last couple block choices. So I made up this one. This one's a smaller one. This is just 6 squares by 6 squares. And so this one I'll probably stash with some of the half square triangles. I might wait and see how many are like left over once I do the next couple blocks, and then just it can always be scrappy. I can also just do some low volume stashing is probably what I'm gonna end up doing too. This block I made a mistake on, but I'm just going with it. So sewing this one, and I turned on accident one of the little quadrants. Here, let me show you up close. So one of the rows I accidentally turned, and I can't remember which one it is, if it's this one or this one. But anyway, I'm going with it and just pretending like it's a baby chick block instead of whatever it was originally supposed to be. So anyways, this is a lot of fun. So start piecing those together, and that should be a fun Easter quilt. I was able to finish piecing the other quilt top this week, and so this one's pretty big. And this one is based on a Jessica Dayton blog post I saw a couple years ago, and she used the same fabric. I think I have more backgrounds just because I was using what was in stash, but I got all of these sewn together. So this is another one I'm hoping to get pieced to get basted and quilted in the next couple weeks. But I can show some of the blocks up close in a second, but just a nice mix of the colors to show how some of the blocks went together. And I did a totally random placement of where the blocks are. And once I get this actually quilted and finished, I can try to do some better photography. But yeah, just get that. I accidentally ended up with two of the same pink together, but it just adds to the randomness. I mean, I'm sure I could lay them all out on the floor and plan it all out a little better, but sometimes it's easier just to sew. And then there's like a whole second side. But I really like this collection. I think I'm going to turn some of the leftovers into some of my project bag little pieces that I'm saving up for when I learn how to do that too. So nice. So there's that quilt top. I definitely recommend getting to the finishing stage of quilt tops like this because I feel like I just have like such a volume of stuff finished. My next one is the Heart at Home by Chelsea Stratton Design, and I've been working on these log cabin blocks for about 2 weeks now, and so I got the quilt top pieced this week, and so this is another one I want to get to the point where I'm basting it and quilting it. I saw, I think it was Rachel Stitches or Stitch with Rachel. She has a lovely quilting channel where she does a lot of English paper piecing and hand stitching, and she made a similar quilt with I think it looked like a Edita Sitar fabric, but she just posted a video about that. So anyway, here is this quilt, and this is all with Chelsea Stratton and Cherry and Chelsea fabrics, and this was a lot of fun to make as well. And I just used leftover and scrap fabric for some of the background pieces, but it's hard to show some of these on here. But I will, again, do better photography and video clips once this is a fully finished quilt. But this was a lot of fun to make, and I definitely plan on making more log cabin quilts. This was my first fully log cabin quilt, so I enjoyed it. I do think, though, that on the next one I might look for a pattern where the strips start with 2 inches instead of 2.5 inch. I think a slightly narrower log cabin might look prettier, but I like this one. This one was fun. I actually think I have another of her patterns with little trees in the middle, so maybe I'll do a Christmas or like a late fall inspired one later on this year. The next section of quilts are things that I found in the closet. I knew I had one of these projects in there, and then when I pulled it out, I found these other ones that I forgot about. So here's one that I had forgotten about, and you can see it's just literally in a state of disarray. So this is years ago, I had purchased a bunch of fabrics that had maps. I don't even know which fabric line this is. Well, this is just a random one, but it has lots of different maps and colors that kind of go together. And so this is one that I will just start piecing just to get it done because it's super cute, and I don't know why I stopped working on it. And this is the project that I'm going to work on once I finish my Valentine's charm quilt, just to get this one out of stash. And I'll just put this next to my machine and just sew blocks and get this one finished hopefully in the next month as well. The next one, and this was the project I went into the closet looking for, and this is another charm quilt that I worked on years ago. This was just a stash buster where I was cleaning out my stash and did not pay attention to how many squares I was doing and ended up with like 50 of these blocks. So I think what happened was I was disappointed with how busy they are, because it's literally like all kinds of fabric that you can possibly imagine. And I think what I should have done, knowing what I know now how it looks, is I should have broken them up into maybe like warms and cools, or knowing what I know now, I would have grouped these into slightly different color palettes instead of this crazy scrappy look. So I sewed some of them into a top though. So I think what I'm going to do with probably all of these is sew them together, and this will back a quilt that I have in my basket. I have one that kind of has like some of these more subdued colors. I think it'll look nice with. And this is one that I picked the ones that I liked the best of the 50 and sewed them together into this quilt top. That's the fun thing about some of these bigger blocks, is that when you're sewing is you could just sit down and it goes really quickly. And then you end up with a big finished product without necessarily having to spend days and days doing tiny piecing. But anyway, so this one still is kind of busy for my taste. So I think what I will do with this one is, I think it'll probably also be a quilt backing. I like some of the fabrics, and some of them are very sentimental, or things that were from things when I was a child, or some of my early quilts. And so, here, you play that one. He's gonna play that one. But anyway, this is one that'll probably be a quilt backing, is what I'm thinking. A scrappy quilt backing, and then that'll look nice. And then it won't necessarily be the front on display. This was another random project that I found. And this is connecting threads fabric from probably like 15 years ago. And I think I had a jelly roll and I sewed it together, and I tried to iron it today. It's kind of a mess, but I could definitely see like, just like how far my stitching has come in that time. Like it's definitely improved. But once I have a piece of scrap batting, I will just quilt this up, put some binding on it, and call it good. I even have the backing fabric all set, so that's something I can get finished. And then this is another one that just needs to be trimmed and needs binding. So this is a batik charm pack quilt. I think I had a couple of charm packs from probably Connecting Threads, and I stashed them and put them together, and it's really pretty. And I don't know why I don't sew with batiks more. Like looking at this, I'm like, they're really pretty. And then I just pieced some random, and this is, I did this probably 15 years ago. So this is not something from this week, but I found it, and it is so close to being finished that I just need to finish it. So anyway, so those are those projects. And then I purchased a box of backing fabric, which is another reason why I'm trying to get quilting tops done, is that way I can kind of get them sandwiched and finished. But it came with a bunch of cuddle fabrics and Minky fabrics, which are not something I necessarily wanted to back quilts with, just because like I prefer flannel or quilting cotton, I think. So anyway, so I took all of the scraps, I folded them in half, and I made my dog some blankets. So they will have some Minky blankets. And these are just the scraps folded in half. That gives you kind of an idea. And I feel like my skill level definitely improved as I was sewing with them. There was definitely a learning curve. I put the walking foot on my machine, and I figured out how to like tension the fabric as I was sewing, and increased my stitch length. This one was the first one, so this one's kind of wavy. And just kind of sewed it. And this one's a bigger one. The dogs will like them. But I personally, I mean, I know they're soft, but I'm just not crazy about how they feel. And I know some people love them, but for me, like, I don't know, like it's just, maybe it's just a sensory thing. But this one's actually super cuddly, but it's not a super big piece. And the other thing I was worried about is I didn't necessarily want to deal with the mess of cutting it. So that's why I just folded them and made them into these little throw blankets for the dogs. And then here's the other one. So anyway, so that's a good way to use those. I'm glad I tried them because I don't know that I ever would have purchased them before. And then now I know that I would rather buy just a regular Moda or Riley Blake 108 if I'm going to do a backing. Well, honestly, I like doing piece backings with fat quarters that maybe aren't my favorite, or another really good way to kind of like clean up stash. And last up, I'm going to talk about some of my plans. So there's a couple of sew-alongs I want to join, and I thought I would wait till the end of the month to start them. Just that way I could catch all of the ones I want to participate in, since they all tend to release on different days and different times of the month. So I want to sew the Sherry McConnell has a free block along, and I want to make that block. And so I haven't decided what color palette. I might do my dark blue and pink. I need to see how many of those blocks I have because I might be ready to piece that into a quilt top. Edita Sitar is doing a mystery block of the month, and that's one I want to participate in. Hers are a little more challenging usually, but I feel like it's a good skill builder for me. So here's two of the colors that I want to use. It's kind of like my main inspiration. And these are both half-yard pieces from Maywood Studio from a couple years ago. I also have this one, but it doesn't quite go with the other blues that I have in mind, but maybe this can be like an accent somewhere. And I'm going to pair it with this trout quarter bundle from Sweet Liberty, and I'm not sure who the designer is. Oh, Brendel Riddle Designs. So I'm going to pair these together. And I've had this fat quarter for a while, fat quarter bundle for a while, and it's got just lots of pretty pinks, some pretty blues and reds, some neutrals. And since I like to make mine kind of scrappy, I also have this Jolly Bar from Mannequin Simpson from a couple years ago, Belle Isle, and I can pull from some of the darker blues and reds and stuff from in here. And then I'll just pull from stash if I need a darker blue or a different color. So that's the Edita Sitar start. I also have these blue fabrics if I need some bigger pieces. And these are Sherry and Chelsea. They're Emma line from a couple years ago. So we'll see. As I see how the blocks are working up, I can make decisions on how to use some of these. You see, like I feel like the ones I pick go well with those, whereas this blue, I don't know. But I could always just put a little pop of that somewhere in the project. So that's one I plan on starting this weekend. The next one I want to start is a hybrid of Lori Holt's patterns. So a couple years ago, I think she did the Sweet Farm applique quilt, and it has like a big barn block in the middle. I want to make that, and I want to make a hybrid with her current stitch along that uses her two books. So I want to make some of the blocks, and I'm going to do mostly a spring summer farm theme with those blocks and see what happens. I'm kind of like making it up as I go. And for the fabric, I'm going to be repurposing some of the fabric. So I have the Prairie Meadow Sew Along quilt. I don't know what I did with the So Simple shapes. I don't know if I was going to buy them and haven't, or if they're just misplaced somewhere. So I need to look and see. Maybe I'll look at my order history and see if I've actually purchased those. But I started making this, and then I think it's just too many colors. So I want to make this, but with a different color palette, kind of more just, I don't know, I have some Three Sisters fabric I want to change it to. But anyway, so I have all of this fabric that I want to use. So I have these two bundles, and I also have some of her brighter fabrics from some of her earlier lines from the Lori Holt fabric. And so I'm going to pull some of these colors out. So some of the more autumnal colors I'm going to take out, and even some of these more muted greens, and I'm going to change them out, I think, with some of the other fabrics I have in my scrap bins, because I feel like this is beautiful fabric, but there's so many colors here. I feel like it becomes kind of overwhelming to me. So I want to focus mostly on like the pinks, the blues, the yellows, and then like the red of the barn. And that's kind of my plan. So I'm going to use these fabrics for the Lori Holt stitch along. I also have this bundle. I don't know if I'm going to need to break into it or not, but I have all of these fabrics too. A lot of fabrics. But anyway, so that's kind of my plan. And then later this year, I want to do a second quilt. And I'm going to use this as kind of like my inspiration, and I'm going to do this as part of the quilt, and then some other blocks is what I'm thinking. But I'll talk about that more later this year. But that's why I'm kind of thinking of splitting some of the colors off so I can use some of them for this quilt later and just kind of have two different seasons. That other quilt came with all these browns too, which honestly I think would work really well with the barn. And then the other big project I want to start, and I don't know if I'm going to start it this weekend or if I'm going to start it in the next probably 2 weeks, is probably 2 years ago, I purchased the Liberty Gatherings block of the month. And so this slowly made its way to my house over the course of a year. And they recolored it at the time for the fabric line that they had out. And I think they are re-releasing it with their current patriotic fabric line. So, I mean, you can check on her website. Their customer service is amazing. I love Primitive Gatherings. But anyway, so I have this big booklet. My plan is I want to sew all the things that are pieced first. So I'll sew the center block, I'll sew the side setting pieces, I'll cut all of the background squares. I try to do as much of the sewing. There's a couple other sewn blocks, and just get all of those done. And then as I have time and as I feel brave enough to try it, I want to do some of the other applique blocks and just work on those throughout the year and just challenge myself to try it, because I've never done wool applique. I've never done some of these hand embroidery things on a quilt, and this I feel like will be a really fun project to work on. So I've got all of the stuff, which is kind of exciting, which is also a good reason I waited, because sometimes if I start a project like this and I'm waiting for stuff to arrive, I lose steam. So anyway, so that's the pattern. I've got the backing fabric, which is just gorgeous. And I've got all of the other main fabrics. And so there's all of the, so I'll have to get these all sorted out. And this is what I'm thinking of starting. It's just kind of getting, and then I can start working on some of the other blocks. And everything came super cute packaged with just, it tells you what the block is, and it has all of the wool in it. And so this should be a fun thing to work on this year. I don't know how long it will take me. This might be a 10-year project. I don't know. But lots of fun little things in here. And so all the little blocks, nice and organized. And then I've got the tone-on-tone fabrics. They were super organized. There was a few things that were out of stock at the time, and then they just sent them later and sew it. I mean, I've got everything now. All of the cute little holes for the, and I know I love saying I'm going to make project bags, but I might make some project bags with some of the leftovers too. And then I've got all the Valdanis, and this will be my first time stitching with Valdanis as well. So lots of cute stuff. The other thing I'm thinking of doing is I have these, I purchased these, I don't know, a few years ago, and they had these American Gatherings hexagons for English paper piecing, and so I might even put some of these on their quilt somewhere too. But anyway, so all this fabric, and I'm trying to think about all the things. Looking at all my piles here. And then I might try to sew. I have all these plans. Like, I don't know when all this is going to happen tomorrow, but just kind of get a lot of the stuff cut tomorrow and then sew it throughout the week is my plan. And then I want to get some more of these designer mystery blocks sewn. So the fabrics look like. I do plan on switching the green out for a red. But I'll just use the fabrics from one of the other blocks because they give you a lot of extra fabric in these kits. My other thing I forgot to talk about earlier is when I'm sewing some of the Lori Holt blocks from the books, because the book has 12-inch and 6-inch size, I'm planning on sewing some more of the 6-inch blocks that I need to finish this quilt. And this is the Little Villages Quilt Along by Jessica Dayton. And I worked on it when it was a free quilt along, but then it's a pay pattern on her blog now. And I've got all of the house and these blocks sewn, and then I think I have 4 or 5 of these ones to do. And so I figure, like, as I'm going through and doing the Lori Holt, I will try to pull out some of this fabric and get this finished, so this can be a finish soon as well. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. It's been kind of a long one, and it's been a lot of fun to sew. Lots of like fun little blocks to work on this week, and I will do another quilt talk next week.